Good evening. Today is September 25th, 2024. I am Derek Fildebrandt, publisher of the Western Standard, and you're watching The Pipeline. I'm joined, as usual, by Western Standard opinion editor Nigel Hannaford. How are you, Nigel?
Good to be here on this day of expanded rights.
Indeed. Not with us today is Western Standard Corey Morgan. In his place, we have the wonderful Erika Barootes, who is, kind of sitting out in a bit of independent media herself, but I like to refer to her as Senator-elect Barootes. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, and I will let you use that title. I think it's Senator-elect waiting longer now, given Mr. Trudeau's appointments, but yeah, I'll keep fighting the good fight.
I'm not using Senator in waiting. I like Senator-elect.
I think it sounds more official as well.
Because when you elect the MLA or the MP before they're sworn in, you know, they're MP-elect, they're MLA-elect, Premier-elect. I like Senator-elect.
Me too.
Okay, well, we've got a good show today. The NDP and Bloc Québécois still have so much confidence in Justin Trudeau. They have Jagmeet Singh has torn up his agreement with Justin Trudeau. It's torn up. I got to emphasize, it's torn up. But breakups, they're not always so clean. He may have moved out, but they're still going to the movies together. Jagmeet Singh still has had his NDP vote that it has confidence in Justin Trudeau's Liberal government. And Mr. Blanchet's Bloc Québécois, well, he heard that the relationship might be testy, so he's moving in. He's making a play to be Trudeau's new girl. And so the Bloc Québécois has also voted that it has very much confidence in Justin Trudeau's government. I know I don't need to rile any of you up anymore about the state of the legacy mainstream media in Canada, but CTV has gone to a whole new depth, not in just spin, not in an angle, not in advancing a bias, but full out lies and fabrication. They have incredibly taken, they fabricated a clip of Pierre Poilievre saying that we should have an election based on the carbon tax, and they fabricated it so that it says we need an election to kill dental care. I actually agree. I don't think the federal government should have anything to do with dental care, but that's not what he said, not what he said whatsoever. And facing a very hefty defamation lawsuit, CTV has eaten Scheisse over it. And, what a good day. What a good day. Alberta's new Bill of Rights. We don't have the exact text of it, but Alberta Premier Danielle Smith laying it out yesterday, giving a significantly expanded and beefed up Alberta Bill of Rights. I know a lot of you are going to love it. It's good. All right. Well, let's get into it. We're going to go start right at the top. Nigel, Jagmeet Singh a few weeks ago said he's breaking up with Justin. He's ripping up the agreement with Justin Trudeau.
Rip, tear.
Ripping it up.
Done.
And then he was asked over and over and over, and quite comically, he was asked over and over, do you have confidence in Justin Trudeau? And he would just say, I ripped it up. Do you have confidence? I ripped it up. Well, the question was settled, and he very much does have confidence in Justin Trudeau. The NDP voting to keep his government power again. And Blanchet's Bloc Québécois also voting now, discovering a newfound confidence in Justin Trudeau. I mean, if they are trying to undermine faith in Canada, that's actually not a bad way to do it. The Bloc Québécois should probably keep Trudeau in power longer. Who's the winner? Who's the loser among the different parties here?
Well, among the different parties, I'll come to that, but obviously we, the Canadian people, are all the losers in this, because you have a government that basically no longer has legitimacy. I'd have to say that on the matter of Mr. Blanchet's confidence, he is confident that as long as he keeps it reasonable, or even a little bit unreasonable, he can put in his chit, and it will be signed and delivered by the Trudeau government, because that's what it's going to take to keep them in office. So I think that Mr. Blanchet is just doing what any smart politician would do in the same circumstances. The person who really is in the very awkward dilemma that you describe is, on the one hand, having no confidence but voting in favor of a vote of confidence is Mr. Singh. I cannot imagine what his electoral future is going to be. Certainly he may keep his seat, but what his legacy in the history books is going to be is a very, very, very strange one. And I think at the end of it all, he's going to wish he'd never done it.
Erika, I was watching some live footage from the House of Commons and Jagmeet Singh speaking to the motion of non-confidence in the Trudeau government. And I had previously thought I had never seen a politician debase and humiliate himself so much as Jagmeet Singh. But that changed yesterday when I saw him standing up, debating this motion, saying, I don't have confidence in Justin Trudeau, but I'm voting to have confidence in Justin Trudeau. I think it's because the NDP stand to have zero influence in the next parliament. Even if they were to somehow pick up some seats, they're going to have less influence because it's going to be a majority Conservative government, very likely. And most importantly, they have no money to fight an election. So I want to focus in on Jagmeet Singh and the NDP here. He tried to make a big to-do about ripping it up, yet he's still voting to have confidence in it. Do you think what do you think is what's the triangulation going on in this man's mind right now?
I think there's a few things at play. One, it's completely embarrassing, right? You're talking from both sides of your mouth, as he did when he said, I'm tearing this up, but wouldn't answer how he would vote in a non-confidence vote in the House. So I think what he was trying to do is to separate the NDP Liberal coalition as a brand, to maybe try and detach that in hopes when the next election, people aren't going to say a Singh-Trudeau alliance. Don't think that was successful for him. Think that brand's cemented, and we're going to see the Conservatives leverage that. But when it comes to so he tried to do that by ripping everything up, then stands up and is saying, basically, I don't have confidence in democracy. I don't have confidence that Canadians are going to pick the left because they've been such an embarrassment. And so he's looking at this as like his party keeps, they're actually holding pretty par, and if not going up, where the others are going down, like the Bloc and the Liberal Party in their seat counts. But you're right. He doesn't have money. He's trying to protect his own brand, it seems, more than he's actually trying to protect his party's brand. And he's doing a horrible job at it based on his speech. Now, I do think his pension is the lingering issue, that it's like he wants to collect a pension. Listen, I get it. He's put his time in, and he'd like to have him, receive that, because I don't think after his performance the last couple months, people are going to be knocking down his door for a job. But I think that's another piece, which is also embarrassing to democracy and to all the people of Canada, that's why it's basically, that was the underlying tone I heard, is I don't believe in this man, but I got some skin in the game and I need to hold on for my own selfishness. Plus my party brand's failing and I'd like to give him the best chance possible.
To be fair to Mr. Singh, which is always difficult for me, I must say that he is not the only member of parliament waiting for his pension to vest. There are, in fact, out of a 338-seat House, I believe 80 MPs in a similar situation of all parties, including the Conservatives. And therefore, there's a lot of support for keeping this thing. If you've got 25% of the House with you, keeping this thing going and going and going, it's got a fairly good chance, I would say, of going the distance. I mean, if your seat is safe, you're not going to worry about it too much. But a lot of seats aren't safe anymore. So
yeah, and I do think that would hurt his internal brand and his party to not call it. But I think we would be remiss by not pointing that out to the viewers, that is, I think, a nugget that's being considered.
Well, there are a lot of Conservatives that will be vesting when that class comes due, but I don't think there's a single Conservative MP who's really worried about losing his seat right now. They're confident that if there's an election, Well, actually, they're more likely to get a bigger pension because they're guaranteed their seats for 4 years after. So, the math. I always try to get inside the head of people I don't agree with. I want to at least understand them if I don't agree with them. So, maybe you guys can help me just understand the math of Singh here. So he rips up the agreement with Trudeau, but wouldn't say if he has confidence or not. The Bloc wants to be the dancing partner now. So with the Bloc voting that it has confidence in the Trudeau government, Trudeau didn't need the Singh's NDP to keep it afloat anymore. So why did he order the NDP to still vote for it? Is it that, because the Bloc and the Liberals, as far as we know publicly, have not struck a deal yet. The Bloc have laid out some pretty high prices to pay off Quebec at the expense of the rest of Canada. We don't know if the Liberals are going to meet that price or not. But at least for this one particular vote, at least, Singh still sided with the Liberals, even if he voted non-confidence, had demonstrated a bit of independence. The government wouldn't have fallen, and he wouldn't have had to worry about an early election. Erika, what do you try to get inside his mind for a moment? If you could channel your Jagmeet Singh, why did he still vote confidence in Trudeau government, even though it wasn't going to fall because it had Bloc support?
I think it's because he doesn't have any money, and he's still trying to talk to the base from his party that like some of the stuff he maybe tried to accomplish or accomplished under the Liberal coalition by detaching himself. I mean, his numbers are staying the same, but his piggy bank isn't getting any bigger. And so I think the big piece of that is to not alienate maybe part of his party that wouldn't vote Liberal and would vote NDP, and he's just trying to hold on to be able to rebrand. I also think that if I was being strategic, and I don't know if that's something that Mr. Singh is capable of, but let's give him the benefit of the doubt. Being strategic on there's still probably some items that his caucus would like to move forward. And if he shows that he's trying to be divisive and not be a quote unquote team player, that there might be still room for negotiation. He might know that depending on the Bloc's decision, he might have a chess piece to play. So I think him not coming out of the gates, demonstrating in the vote, not necessarily how he feels, that he doesn't support Trudeau, that he doesn't get that wiggle room to try and have further conversations and leverage that relationship, because he can really only go up from here from a fundraising and brand perspective.
I want to talk about the Bloc. It's times like this where I really kind of wish we had one ourselves. I want a Bloc too. They're just so damned pragmatic, and not in an ideological sense, but in a let's make a deal sense. Like, you could tell these guys read The Art of the Deal, and they are willing to just say things out loud about the transactional nature of Canada that no one is willing to say, because that's really what Canada has been denigrated to at this point. It is a system of extortions and transfers, and who can be extorted the least and transferred to the most is the winner. And the Bloc is just ruthlessly pragmatic about it. They're not even saying it's a good thing or a bad thing. They're saying that's the way it is, and we're here to play ball. The Bloc, after the Conservatives, is probably the most election-ready party in Parliament. They're doing okay in the polls. They stand to lose some seats from the Conservatives, but to pick up fair number from the Liberals. They just won a historic seat in the Verdun, I don't know the rest of the name of the riding, but the Verdun riding on the island of Montreal. That seat is Liberal royalty. It is the keep of the castle. It's literally got the moat, the island of Montreal, around it. But some of their incumbents would lose. So, I mean, that's cold comfort that, hey, they might net win, but those members of their caucus who would lose their seats to the Conservatives, they wouldn't be eager for an election. But they've got at least some money in the bank. They're decent in the polls. They're the most election ready after the Conservatives. Nigel, maybe kind of game out how they're feeling here, because there's a seat projection that came out today that showed the Bloc Québécois forming official opposition for the first time since between the period of 1993 to 1997 under Lucien Bouchard in their first major election. The Liberals dropping to fourth place in the Accountant House of Commons. They stand to pick up, but that would be in a majority government where they have less leverage. Maybe kind of game out for us, the thinking of the Bloc Québécois here.
Well, I think you just gave us the clue right there in your last sentence. They will no longer, they may be the official opposition, but they will not have the votes that you would need to actually force the government to do anything. The strategy for Quebec has always been to hold to ransom the government of the day. When you have a government that is as weak as today's Liberal government, you can actually ask for fairly big money. When you don't have the votes, there's only so much you can do. They are going to go for it for the next year, which is one reason why I don't think there's any danger of an imminent election, because they've got 12 months to see what they can get. The high likelihood is that after the next election, they will not be in such a strong position to demand big money be transferred from the rest of Canada to Quebec. So it's really not that hard. Motivations are pretty clear.
I guess it's funny, we're talking about everyone except for the Liberals. I mean,
they're old news. They're old news. they're gone.
Yeah, it's like they're not even the government anymore. Like, yeah, they're there, but they're already in the terminal waiting to depart. Mm-hmm. Like we've already kind of checked them out. Where we're not even, they're the biggest party in the House of Commons at present, but we're not even really talking about them because they don't really have. Well, they do have some cards to play, and they're going to play every damn card possible to do anything to stop an election. I know Jen Gerson at the line, she's had some smart writing on this. To what effect? What do you want this year for? It's just I guess a year without Poilievre is a contextual victory in this case, perhaps. But the Liberal line has become that Pierre Poilievre and the Conservatives only want an election for themselves. Well, of course they want to be in power. That's what, other than like the Greens, that's the intent of and the Bloc Québécois. That's the intent of every political party that has ever existed. That's why we have political parties. But then I saw on, I'm not sure, it was maybe Vashi Capellas at Global, kind of turned it around on them saying, well, aren't you avoiding an election for your interests? It's your interest to not have an election. So maybe I'll get your input on this, Erika. Why do you think, I'm going to ask you to kind of be the Justin Trudeau whisperer here, get inside his head. Why do they want a year? Like, why are they willing to sell out the kitchen, like throw everything at doing anything possible to avoid an election for a year? What can that year give them?
I think that there's two parts. That one is the Liberal Party, and one itself is Justin Trudeau. And, he's been doing kind of a little bit of a celebrity road show where I think he truly believes that he can, refresh his brand, that he can come back and pull a 2015. We like this guy for who he is, even though his record is poor now, but we still like him to be our spokesperson. So I think that this next year can maybe help him. I don't know. And then I think the other thing is, I mean, you said it earlier, they're basically fighting for a podium spot, right? Like they're third or fourth. And when you're in that position in your government and you can control triggering an election, you're never going to do that. I mean, and we haven't seen a lot of pull the trigger early work well. We saw, how Harper approached it, and it was the longest writ. I was running a local campaign. It was like, what was it, 65 days or something? And then we saw it with Jim Prentice here. Like, it hasn't boded well to not play out your term. I can't think of policies that they want to bring forward, except maybe a horrific budget that they would love to then have a new conservative government have to manage. So it's almost like they're just trying to leave little nuggets of their legacy for when they go, and making it harder. Senate elections, I think, was a prime example of making it harder for the next government, not looking out for the best interest of Canadians. And I think Trudeau's narcissism is playing into that as well.
Well, I would agree, Madam Senator-elect. Okay, let's switch it up to this astonishing video from CTV. Let's just begin. First, we're going to play what CTV says Pierre Poilievre said.
That's why we need to put forward a motion.
Okay, now let's play the clip of what he actually said.
That's why it's time to put forward a motion for a carbon tax election.
Okay, Nigel, you've been around the media business for some time, less than the TV side, more. You come from the Calgary Herald and now Western Standard. I mean, it's easier to manipulate words, take things out of context, and print. I could make you say anything if I had a transcript of our time together. I could splice different things. It'd be easier in print, but it's much more difficult to take video of someone here, cut their sentence off here, insert different sentence here, and then a third sentence there. And that's what CTV's done. Media make errors. We make errors. But they're normally honest errors, and they might flow from our biases. They might flow from our point of views. But we don't go out of our way to outright fabricate something that someone never said. How the hell can,
how can they live with themselves?
Yeah, like how the hell can something like this happen? Because this is not an error. This is not an error made in goodwill based off of our point of views and biases. This was fabrication. This is the kind of thing the Liberals like to pretend Vladimir Putin's behind all the time in Canada. This was beyond even disinformation. This was fabrication entirely. How the hell could something like this get through a newsroom?
Well, it never used to happen before the government started paying for newsrooms, did it?
Probably
anyway,
less frequently.
Less frequently. Look, as long as there have been newspapers, there have been people who have been interviewed and said, well, I never said that. I was misquoted. And that's when tape recorders came into vogue. That was a bit of a protection for the average reporter. So yes, mistakes were made. Sometimes things were made that weren't even mistakes. And the idea that the press is slanted politically in one direction or another is a very old one. For the 50 years that I've been in the business, it's been always accused that the press is biased. So this is just bias, but on the grand scale and with a degree of sophistication that we seldom see. There is within the profession a degree of dishonesty that's always been there, but has been very much enhanced in recent years. You ask me how this could happen. Well, there are some people who honestly believe that as media, they are part of the process. If you want to see it writ large, look at the coverage of the United States election at the moment, where even people who don't like Trump have to admit that the coverage of Trump by what we refer to as the mainstream media, basically everybody except Fox, is highly one-sided, 90% negative. All right, well, that's happened. Guess what? That happens in Canada too, and in the classrooms at the journalism colleges today, young people are taught that as a journalist, your job is not to get both sides of the story and let the reader make up their mind, the listener would make up their own mind, the watcher. It is to interpret the news. Now, I had an issue this time last year, you may recall, from remarks at the prayer breakfast, which were literally taken and out of context and inaccurately reported. Nobody actually cut and spliced pieces of tape to make it sound like I said something I didn't say, but they certainly judiciously cut and moved things around to
that was global.
That was global.
What was the reporter's name again?
You know,
I want to shame him. You're nicer than me.
No,
I
no,
want
no,
to shame him.
I'm sorry. It's the old man thing. I can't remember.
I'm going to chalk it up to you being a nicer guy than
All
me.
right, chalk it up to me. But at any rate, I do believe he now works for Mayor Gondek. So there's your clue. Anyway, look, this is a real bad one. The fake Poilievre quote. It is a really bad one, and I just wish people in the media would understand that nobody respects them. They haven't respected them for years. As a profession, we're down there with car salesmen who actually, in my experience, have turned out to be a good deal more ethical than some of the people we're talking about now.
Mm-hmm.
And there is a reason why people are going to alternative sources. They don't trust the old mainstream media. And this is exactly the kind of thing which is going to push them further away.
Yeah. Erika, I'd like your thoughts on the fabrication here, but maybe also you're kind of zooming out a bit about the broader consequences this might have for the legacy and mainstream media. Poilievre, the next election, the media are going to know that if one side wins, they're probably going to lose their job when he kills the English CBC and kills the media subsidies. Most of these guys are going to literally lose their job or keep their job depending on the outcome of an election. That's a pretty impossible spot for a reporter to be in and do a fair job. So maybe you want to talk your thoughts about this fabrication from CTV, but then also maybe the broader effect this might have.
Like what we'll see in the next election. So yeah, I'll start with, first off, I think you guys missed this opportunity to say, like, this is something I would expect from the CBC, not CTV. I think they can do better. But when it comes to how this works, because you've asked me to put the hat on a few times of the other side, I started doing that as Nigel was kind of sharing, I think a very good point. But if they're looking at it, I'm like, okay, they would argue, but like attack ads do this, political parties do this. We see, this whole purpose of quoting, they did say this, and that argument. When it comes to like other strategies outside of journalism, which has its own ethics, even if they were like, well, in the 2023 election, you guys were all taking, one line that if you look at it in context means something totally different. Yes, but those are campaign strategies. And I think that, again, journalists should be held to a higher standard. And that this is in kind of, again, embarrassing. It's not something that I think CTV or in Nigel's case, Global should do. Slicing up, even political parties don't do that. You don't slice up a video to get a different story outcome. You might pull one line and use that in the paragraph may have a different resonation, but that is their words and that is in the order in which they said that. So it's even below like an attack ad that people criticize, becomes too dirty or too dark, or it's a different type of politics. So, journalists are supposed to be rising above, and they're going even beneath that. So shameful. I just want to say that. On the strategy, I think that the Conservatives are used to it and need to know that when it comes to how are journalists going to play out this next election. We've learned that the mainstream media doesn't remove their bias to tell the story so that viewers can come up with their own. So I do think it's a big opportunity for, shameless plug, my podcast called The Discourse that talks about those types of things, as well as The Pipeline and all the Core Mortgage, Nigel's show, all of these types of alternative media that, sometimes we have our bias, but we're clear about it. And that's what I think, or you can play devil's advocate and criticize, both your side and the other side. but give people the opportunity to truly come up with their own conclusions without jamming it down their throats or misleading people. So I think that you're going to see the traditional media get very biased in how they are reporting the next election. For Canadians, I think that they're getting kind of sick of it. They're seeing that clear correlation to the left and that's why we've seen such an uptick of alternative media outlets, especially to get the right side message out. And I do think that, as Canadians, I just hope people do more research than read a headline, or do more research than like find one article, and that we do see the opposite, maybe a benefit of the divisiveness in society, where people are actually educating themselves more than they have to be able to truly understand an issue, a party's position, and all of that going forward. But I don't think the Conservatives are going to be leveraging mainstream media to get their message out this election. We'll see more of the type of communication that Pierre's done so well.
Okay. All right. Well, we're going to bring it a little closer to home here in Alberta. Yesterday, Alberta Premier Danielle Smith announcing, what we've known is coming for some time, a new Alberta Bill of Rights. Alberta's had a Bill of Rights for a long time. I believe the first one was, it was brought in under Peter Lougheed. It effectively forms a part of the provincial constitution. I think all the provinces have these to some extent. The provincial constitutions they resemble more the British Constitution, that it's both unwritten and a series of documents that make up a constellation, a constitutional constellation, if you will. Mm-hmm. So this would have no effect on federal laws in Alberta, but it would certainly, it trumps all other provincial statute. So, already there's the current Bill of Rights as it stands is very similar to the Federal Charter of Rights and Freedoms. But this one's gonna beef it up now. This is, very much a nod to basic rights violations coming from the COVID era. Our crack judges in Canada did not seem to think that sovereignty of the person in many cases had anything to do with the right on whether they take a medical treatment or not. Well, that's going to be put quite explicitly into here. That is freedom in medical decisions, whether they take a vaccine, that kind of thing, the right to refuse treatments. It is going to include something that has long been called for to be included in the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms. That is property rights. It's a fundamental right that was, I was going to say inexplicably, but I think we would have our suspicions about why Pierre Trudeau really did not want property rights included. But this is going to include property rights and not the right to not have it deprived without proper due process at the courts, etc. And this one was rumored to be in, and I just didn't think they had the political gonads to do it, but I was pleasantly wrong. Gun rights. This will be the first formal expression of gun rights in a Charter of Rights or Bill of Rights in Canadian history. Some would say that's kind of a part of property rights. It's a part of the right to life and personal freedoms, but the courts have been less generous in their interpretations. This is going to put it in, not using quite the American language of right to bear arms as a part of a well-regulated militia, but I don't have the exact text in front of me, but it's the right to safely own, acquire, and use firearms, which is pretty damn. It's a lot better than I didn't expect them to do it at all, because I know they've been taking some courageous positions on a few things. This one, the government-funded media is losing its bloody mind, Nigel. Mm-hmm.
Well, and we're just finding ours, aren't we? My word. They are. No, this is an extraordinary document. We haven't seen the legislative details yet, but looking at the statement that the Premier released yesterday, it is a very strong statement of personal belief on her part, I'm sure, and the reason that I'm sure, she very gallantly made reference to old discussions we'd had 20 years ago when we were on the editorial board at the Calgary Herald, and chose to remember that. And, so much of what I see coming from her generally, but also specifically in this rewrite or these amendments, it's not a rewrite, these amendments are things that have been on her mind in one form or another for a very long time. So I know she's absolutely sincere about it, because there is a tendency for people to say, well, she's got to do that for the people who supported her, during the leadership campaign or whatever. No, this is what she really thinks. She does believe in property rights. She was in the property rights business before she was ever in the politics business. Now we're going back nearly 30 years. She was, and with the gun rights, she honestly believes that people should be free, as long as they're not criminals, to own, keep, and safely store and use firearms. Why not? I mean, it's a free country, right? We say that, a free country, but in so many ways it's not. And it would be less so if the federal government had its way. This is the thing about this is going to send a message to the rest of the country. It's going to encourage other people to think like us. And there's some possibility of just pushing back against Ottawa to say, no, you just can't do this. You can't mandate people to have a vaccine. You can't take away guns, and you can't build a highway through my backyard.
Erika, this is a big deal. It's not going to stop federal intrusions, and the federal government can is a huge violator of gun rights. But the province has taken direct control from the office of the chief firearms officer, which is essentially the application of the law. And I'd say that's been pretty successful for gun owners in Alberta. It's been an absolute coup. It was, out of the good things and the bad things of the Kenney government, this one's got to be at the absolute near the top of the good things that it was able to achieve. But I mean, on the one hand, I'd say the whole thing, not just the guns, but the entire thing, this is an act of political bravery. But on the other side, there's political danger here. This is going to be, this is going to make heads explode. We don't have the actual text of the legislation yet, but I think we got a pretty good idea from the Premier's speech yesterday. Maybe you want to weigh in on the balance here of political bravery and delivering something that I think she genuinely believes in, and that her base, I think, very much is going to be pleased by. But on the other hand, the political dangers here. Going to have the legacy media unanimously against her, and all the usual pearl clutching groups and individuals that you would expect.
Yeah. So I think that, to your point, this is a communication and a change of something she's talked about for a long time. Like Nigel dates back, years, but she ran on this. She ran on reviewing, and what started out, and just want to remind people, is the human rights infringement on COVID and the vaccinations. And so she expanded that, which I actually think gives her a little bit more political runway, because it wasn't just about changing it for COVID. It's like, well, if we're going to open up the Human Rights Act, let's open up the whole thing. And in there, I think, as we all know, when you amend a bill, you amend it because it is no longer relevant to the time, or there's something that happened. A lot of these things are actually responses to what the Trudeau government has done. The gun buyback and attacking gun owners. Property rights has been a long-standing issue in Alberta, and we've seen the federal government infringe on those rights. Like these are in the Charter of Rights and Freedoms and the Constitution. Like they're coming into our jurisdiction, and that we are a province, strong and free, is our motto, that in the fundamental freedoms that we had and are in the Charter of Rights and Freedoms are now being attacked and challenged. So I think the amendments and the timing, whether it's on your choice of a vaccination, whether you got one or not, I think you being able to choose if you should get a vaccination, most people can agree with, from that fundamental freedom of choice. When it comes to the property rights, again, we've seen it in Saskatchewan and Alberta, where the federal government is going outside of their reach. They're coming in. We've seen Premier Scott Moe take some pretty good stances on that, as well as that we are not like the United States. Punishing gun owners is not going to remove the crime of people that illegally have guns in this country and are shooting people in downtown Toronto. Like that is all things that I think as an Albertan, if you break it down, that I really don't think, if you come it back to freedoms and your ability to choose, and that we do have good regulations in place to protect some of the things that will be fear mongered, I think most people in common sense can understand why these three things came out of the review, and that it wasn't, once upon a time, it was about COVID. And this premier took like you said, an aggressive move to address it, but she's addressing it holistically. So even at that point, I think people should appreciate that it was more than what she campaigned on. Absolutely, go ahead, Nigel, jump in.
No, I want you to finish.
Well, we actually,
okay.
we actually have to. We gotta wrap it there and move on to
okay. I was going to say though, I just want to add though that I think that she is speaking to her base. She's got a leadership review before she's got another election. So, and in 2 years of a mandate, you put a lot of tough things through in your first 2 years. So as she does that, the people that hate this are going to hate it, and they were always going to hate it. The ones that are lighting their hair on fire had their lighter ready when Danielle Smith became premier. So I don't think it's going to change anything outside of some loud noise that we're going to have to listen to. But these people were never going to support it, whether it was just about COVID or in the comprehensive way we see it.
All right. Thank you. All right. Well, we're going to move to our new ending segment, parting shots. We're gonna go first to Nigel, so you can follow along, get the spirit of things, Erika.
Sounds good.
Nigel, your parting shot.
My parting shot. Well, actually, I've got two. One is watch my interview with.
I didn't say you could have two.
Well, I made an executive decision. I get to do that. I'm the opinion editor, right? So look, watch my podcast with Premier Smith about the it's the Hannaford show. Okay. Second one has got to do with the story that came out of Toronto about teachers who took their students, grades 7, 8, and 9, with the permission of parents, believing that they were going to a demonstration to do with water on Indian reserves. They wanted better water. The parents signed, said, sure, I'm in favor of that. My kid can attend the protest and watch. Mm-hmm. And then they ended up down there, and the kids were told to wear blue pullovers to signify that they recognized themselves as colonialists and oppressors. And then the next thing was that they were chanting pro-Palestine slogans and were just the playthings of the teachers to pursue their own wretched personal policies. That's wrong. There needs to be a sacking day. And also, coming back to the subject of what we were talking about earlier, losing trust in things, this is how people lose trust in the education system. It's just one incident, but you hear about this kind of thing so frequently. And it's why right here in Alberta, probably 20% of the students would be out of the public system if they could only get there. As it is, probably about 12% are outside it. So trust is broken and it can't be easily repaired.
All right. Erika, you get one parting shot.
Okay. Mine is, this frustration I have with the left using the term inclusive, and it's getting really sick and, an old buzzword, because it's actually the most exclusive club you can be a part of. And I think of how the trans individual that has sent their video with Jennifer Johnson, MLA for Lacombe-Ponoka, viral, saying that this woman is a bigot and she does this and that. And the outset was this trans person asking for Jennifer Johnson, before even engaging in conversation, to declare that a trans woman is a woman. And to me, that's not about being inclusive. Inclusive is truly being open-minded, listening to the other side, respectfully disagreeing. Something that Jennifer kept coming back to was like, well, can we respectfully disagree on this and continue our conversation? I'd like to hear your story, etc. And instead, the left just went off in a tyrant that Jennifer hasn't learned and she shouldn't come back to caucus. And it all comes back to them using this term about it's inclusive. It's to create this inclusive space. But to me, that is the exact opposite of inclusivity. It's excluding Jennifer because she may not agree with someone, but that doesn't mean she wasn't there to be open and listen and hear that person. So it's something that gets me really fired up, as you can tell. And I think that the left could learn from how we're maybe a little bit more tolerant with other views than our own.
All right. And my parting shot, short and sweet. If you've got the stomach for it, make sure you watch Justin Trudeau's slow pitch love-in with Stephen Colbert. It's painful to watch, but I like hate watching and I love hate reading. It was something to behold. I think Colbert was briefed very vaguely that Justin Trudeau's not very popular anymore. I think he's. I think maybe that briefing was a bit gentle, though, that he is outright almost universally loathed in Canada now, even among his own party. But these just slow pitch questions saying, with the rise of fascism around the world, and you've got your own Trump far right guy in the Conservative Party. What are you doing, Justin Trudeau, to stop Canada from becoming as bad as America? And it was just sickening. But I hate watching stuff like this because I remember when Stephen Colbert would do a great job being a pretend Bill O'Reilly right-wing pundit. That was funny. That was comedy. But Stephen Colbert is, I think, ceased being a comedian a long time ago. He's just another pompous, far-left, late-night host. So it's too bad. All right, that's my parting shot. Nigel, Erika, it's been a slice. Really appreciate you joining us as a guest on the show today. Added a little color, one less old white guy. So
always happy to be that person.
All right. And thank you all for joining us this evening. If you're not yet a member of the Western Standard, what's wrong with you? The Western Standard is one of the very, very last media in Canada not taking Justin Trudeau's federal media subsidy. We rely on advertising and membership subscriptions from people like you. Go to westernstandard.news right now. It's only $10 a month or $100 a year to get past the paywall and get unlimited access to all Western Standard content. I'm sure you're going to love it, and you'll be supporting one of the last free media outlets left in Canada. Thank you very much for joining us today, and God bless. You can become a Western Standard member for just $10 a month or $99 a year for unlimited access.